and welcome to this September 16th edition of Beyond the Headlines. My name is Colin Dowe. I'll be serving as your host, and let me just start off by saying thank you for joining us. Thank you for having us in your living rooms, bedrooms, cars, bars, shops, wherever you may be viewing or listening this evening's edition. It's a privilege to have you share the next 90 minutes with us as we discuss the future of road traffic management in Grenada. I have three esteemed guests, each qualified in separate areas, for us to delve into this topic. And I'll just ask them to introduce themselves and give their portfolios. I'll start off with you, ASP.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dowe, and a pleasant good night to the listening and viewing public of this program. My name is Randall Batiste, Assistant Superintendent of Police, and I am the officer in charge of Traffic Department.
Okay. David?
Good night to the listening and viewing public of Grenada, Petite Martinique, and Carriacou. My name is David Bartholomew. I'm the CEO of the Grenada Transport Commission.
Sorry. My name is Derek McKenzie. I'm the Public Relations Officer of the National Bus Association. And I want to say good night to the viewing and the listening public.
Excellent. Gentlemen, welcome. ASP, you have been with us before. Derek, you have been with us before, so we'll take advantage of the newbie as we kick off, all right? David, you cited that you are the CEO of the National Transport Commission. Can you just share with our viewers and listeners what is the mandate of the Commission?
Okay, let's start by probably at the beginning. The Grenada Transport Commission, that was established in December 2020 by an act, an amendment, 9 of 2020. This present board was inaugurated in 2022. Prior to that, it had a National Transportation Board that was established in 1993. And we have three critical mandates for that board. One was to administer the warden program. Two, to advise the minister on anything that has to do with transportation and vehicles. And three, to administer the bus route sticker program. Those were the broad mandate.
Right.
When I say advise the minister on transportation issues and vehicle issues, we're talking about tariffs and fares and all these things, anything that has to do with that.
Okay, all right. ASP, in your view, I wouldn't ask the person who is advising the minister on traffic issues, but you're the boots on the ground, as it were. So in your view, do you believe that we have a traffic management issue, problem, challenge in Grenada?
Very much so. I totally in sync with that. We definitely have a traffic management issue in Grenada. But before I go into some of the issues or the challenges that lends itself to affect traffic management, I must establish, in the case of traffic management, the responsibility and the role of the Royal Grenada Police Force. And our role and responsibility is to deal with the regulation of traffic, law enforcement, community engagement, and public education.
Okay.
Those three broad areas is where we focus on when it comes to dealing with traffic management. Going into the whole aspect of some of the issues we faced as it relates to traffic management, we have seen a rapid increase in terms of vehicle ownership on island. And just to give you the figure as of today in terms of the amount of vehicles registered in the state of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, 63,780 vehicles.
63,780
vehicles.
And we have a population based on the last census
of 120,000.
Of 120, well, pushing it, because the last number I saw from the 2021 census is a little bit less. less. But even if we put it at 120,000, we have one vehicle for every 2 people,
so to speak.
Okay.
One vehicle for every 2 people. We also, one of our challenges as well, and I'm happy that the CEO is here and the government saw the vision to set up the Transport Commission, is the whole aspect of the public transport system. Yes, we need to see some improvement in the public transport system. The whole road infrastructure issues. As you know, nothing has since changed in terms of our road infrastructure, the size, the length, and so forth. But now we have more vehicles to deal with on
To put
the
this
road space.
in perspective, do you have any historical data? Let's say you can say 5 years ago, 10 years ago, what that number was. We know that it is
In terms of the vehicles?
number of vehicles.
Yes, 5 to 10 years ago, we was in the range of between 30 to 35,000.
So we have doubled in the last 10 years.
Almost doubled, yes. Almost doubled.
And we're not referring to, you see, pardon me here because I'm a little bit overwhelmed. We're not referring to dealers who bring in vehicles. We're talking licensed vehicles who are now which are now eligible to be on the road.
Right, vehicles that are registered. When the dealers bring in vehicles, those vehicles will be there operating on demo.
Right.
And when time comes to sell, then it will go to get to be registered. So that have nothing to do with the dealership bringing in their vehicles.
All right.
We, last but not least, in terms of our traffic management challenges, is the whole aspect of road safety issues. We have seen now increasing motor vehicle accidents on our roads. So those areas are some of the areas we see current traffic challenges.
So we go number of vehicles, we go safety concerns, and we go road conditions, you see, as three of the challenges.
And the transport system.
And the public transport system. Derek, same question. As you are a major stakeholder as the National Bus Association, what are there, is there a traffic management issue or challenge in Grenada? And what would be some of the things you will point to as you reflect on these challenges if they exist?
Yes, we have a traffic management issue, and that issue involves all of us, all stakeholders, referring to public transportation, private transportation, pedestrians, and to a certain extent, enforcement. What do I mean by that? Many times you traverse the nation road and it's the way that we operate. Yes, we have a lot of vehicles, but it's what we do or how we operate those vehicles. Typical example, if you were to come from St. Paul's in the morning, when you reach on top of White Garden, and that would have a lot to do with the management. We have a lot of like daycares, schools. What would happen? Somebody would be traveling in public transportation, and because of they want to save $1 or so, they don't want to take another bus. So what they would do, they would ask you, driver, can you wait for me for a minute? So in that process, what you do, you block a lane. While you're waiting for that person to go drop off.
I just want to underline that comment. You block a lane.
Yes.
Right? I'm underlining that comment because I will get back to it. All right? Continue.
Yeah, so, because it's two lanes. One.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Block a lane.
Yes.
While you wait for that individual to go drop their child to the daycare and to come back. Right? Then you have schools, which the same thing happened. And I'm talking both public transportation and private transportation too, because many times that's what happened. Is they without available parking, they would park on the side and rush to the daycare and come back. So that is a big issue. The other issue with pedestrians, we are not educated as to how to use pedestrian crosses. So we would drip, and that holds back the traffic a lot too. Where law enforcement comes in, sometimes you attending to somebody that probably would have committed a violation, and in doing so, you're violating too. Because whereby you could pull the person on the side, you have a lot of instances where you do the same thing by blocking a lane to ticket somebody. So in a nutshell, all of us have to play our part in addressing transportation.
Okay. David, you've heard the challenges. The hat on the head, or the weight really is yours as Transportation Commission. How would you respond to the challenges cited both by ASP and also PRO?
On my right and my left hand are two of the most critical stakeholders that we have as the Grenada Transport Commission. You know, and listening to what Mr. Batiste said, you know, it's really revealing and startling that you have a vehicular population that's rapidly increasing, and if it has increased from 30,000 5 years ago to 60,000 now, that's really startling. Grenada doesn't have the sort of road network to sustain that kind of vehicular traffic. It just doesn't. You know, question is, what do we do? You know, the only solution is to ensure that we have a very, very excellent running transportation system that will encourage people to leave their vehicles at home or do invest in a vehicle. You know, and this is just an aside. A lot of young people invest in vehicles because they want to get to work early, which is one of the things. If we could have a system in place where we could divert their attention, let's assume that to buy a house instead, or invest in a house rather than a vehicle, because they have an excellent running system. You know, I think that will be a very challenging thing or way to go. But we cannot continue having this amount of vehicles. I've been around some of the vehicle dealers, and I'm just seeing vehicles. There are so many vehicles, you know. And I'm saying, when these vehicles get on the road, you know, where are they going to go? Where are they going to? And then
you seen your problems.
Yes, you know. And then I think it's either Mr. Mackenzie or Mr. Batiste, right, raised the issue of parking on the streets, you know, and the problem that is caused by the vehicle parking on the street, which add to the whole burden, you know. So we have some serious issues.
So let's take some of these challenges. And yes, Derek raised it, and this one, I must confess, is a personal annoyance of mine. And his language was blocking a lane. It is not parking on the side of the road, because we don't have a shoulder to park on.
Precisely.
So when you stop, you're stopping in the road. You're blocking a lane. How can we alleviate this mentality in order to show individuals that when you complain about traffic, you're part of the problem? You just finish blocking the lane, you drive off, and you're in traffic because somebody is down the road is doing the very same thing that you did. You stop by a bar, you stop by a shop, etc. You're not on the side of the road. You are in a lane. How do we address this?
That I don't have an answer for that at this point in time. Probably Mr. Batiste, who have been in the system much more than I haven't had enough time to study the system, or Mr. Mackenzie may have an answer. But that particular issue, I don't have an answer for it at this point. But it's something that we are already looking into, and I'm sure we'll come up with an answer that is comfortable, I'm using the word comfortable, to everyone.
This is a public health annoyance, ASP, so work with me here. You know, how can we address it?
And I must mention that those type of practices is what lends itself to the whole congestion issue. Yes, obstruction, whatever we do that contributes to obstruction, then it goes on to congestion. I think enforcement is key. We need to reach to that stage where we're in a position to have a fleet, a consistent motorcycle unit within the Royal Grenada Police Force that can patrol those different streets and deals with those type of infractions that are likely to cause or causing obstruction at the time it happens, so we can clear those obstructions and continue flow. We need to do a lot of education to the public, explain it to them, because sometimes people feel if you're in a line of traffic with about 40 to 50 vehicles and you stop for 1 second, that is 1 second too many. That 1 second alone is enough for that 40 vehicles will have to come to a standstill within that 1 second.
And there's a multiplier effect based on the number of vehicles in order for the traffic to be flowing again.
To be flowing. So I think the key here is for us to have that, as I said, motorcycle unit that can take care of this type of infraction in short order and educating the public.
Okay. Go ahead.
I think one of the things, a possible solution that I've heard postulated was to have some sort of parking areas within the communities, within the parish, where people could, in easy distance from the people, somewhere could actually park. But added to that, there is the issue where people, but derelict vehicles, and people don't have any way to actually, no means of disposal of their derelict, so they just leave it right there, So there has to be a system, and the system has to be probably government initiated, where when the vehicle has reached its useful life, there could be some way, in foreign you have these breaker yards where you could take a vehicle to a breaker yard and they could crush it and that sort of thing. There must be a system where the public could easily turn to and go to, take the vehicle that they don't want anymore and carry it in breaker yard. So that is probably one of these solutions, probably that could help, added to having some in the communities, have some open space where people could actually park. But it is a challenge, and one of the challenge that is, a lot of the houses are very, very close to the road. So the system, the infrastructure, the whole design, it wasn't designed for that, So people literally don't have any way to park. They literally don't have any way to park.
But isn't this the responsibility of the homeowner or the business owner? You're setting up an establishment. Just before I get to the homeowners, you're setting up an establishment. I'm assuming that you're going to physical planning to seek permission to set up this establishment. You're getting a business license. Sometimes a restaurant, you're selling food. If you're selling food, one would expect you to have toilet and bathroom facilities. Exactly. If you're attracting customers, one would expect you to have parking. Other than that, you should not be allowed to operate. Building a home, similarly, we should be moving to the point where it's a one-car garage or parking area, but the public lane cannot be your car park.
Agreed.
Because despite what CEO would have mentioned about where they will park, there's no way for them to park. But Section 67 of the Road Traffic Act clearly dispels and prohibit, despite persons having homes, to be parking on the roadway. They should not be parking on the roadway at all.
So it is an offense to park on the roadway in a manner to cause obstruction or likely to cause obstruction. And the narrowness of our roads, almost any roadway that you parked on, which is a two-way roadway, will cause obstruction. Because there's no side of the road, it's in the lane. And I really appreciate that terminology. One other thing then, so what you suggested is enhancement of the RGPF, and we're looking at probably some motorcycle unit in order to have this enforcement. It's a ticketable offense, I imagine, right? CEO, do we need the RGPF to do that, or can wardens be empowered and have a separate unit, just as we have parking meters, enforcement officers in the US and otherwise? Can the traffic wardens, can this be one of their responsibilities?
What I'm saying is, because we work very closely with the RGPS, very, very closely with them, So that could be one of their duties in collaboration with the Royal Grenada Police Force.
Okay. Derek, how do we address the cultural issue, and it is, of hold on for me, driver. I just go in and drop that there. Oh, mommy, and she gives the conductor, and the conductor is the one that runs, to drop off the groceries or whatever it is. Or we see cross the child to get to school, get to the daycare, etc. How do we balance that good cultural and community practice with the management of the congestions on our roads?
Well, first I should say thanks to the conductors that they do a pretty good job securing the nation's children by doing that. Oftentimes they're looked over with the good things that they do. Culture would change with time. I think what we need to do is, going forward, what we need to do is, when people are setting up infrastructure in terms of like daycares, schools, and these kind of things like that, you must take in consideration traffic, parking. That's what happened. I don't know what are the criteria for somebody setting up a daycare, but you would find that they pop up all over the place, and they have to be close to the road because it has to be accessible for persons to do the same thing. So that would get to the answer. What we need to do in terms of that one in particular, you must have adequate parking that, somebody could pull over in a parking area instead of blocking a lane to do that. And the next one has to do with social issues, because a lot of time it's because people can't afford to pay 2 bus fare. Okay, you will drop off at the daycare, but then if you get off, what happens? You have to pay another bus to get to where you're going. And if you, on your return, you'll have to do the same thing. So many times it's because of that, this financial burden that the parent try to take off of themselves.
Okay.
Just to make the point, Derek was speaking here, you have to mention about not just public service vehicles, but private vehicles. And if you realize we have a lot of schools along the congested routes, especially in the peak hours, right, and a number of the private vehicles, because they have no place to pull over to drop off the kids, so the traffic will have a continuous flow. They have to stop in the road, as Mr. Sylvester, Derek said, block a lane. Mm-hmm. So this in itself contributes a lot to congestion.
As you look at the congestions and the frustrations, and you probably, as you would have done your studies, you can identify what roads, what days, what times are the most frustrating to you all, user, making sure that there's proper management and enforcement of proper use of the road.
So in terms of the days and the time, Monday to Friday, when the school is in operation. Okay. And based on my observation, if you have a time, you should check it yourself. When school on holiday, you hardly see any congestion between the 7 to 9 hour. So it just tells you the school operations have a lot to do with the congestion, and that is as a result of the reason I just gave a while ago, because our number of, and that normally happens from between 7 and 9. But I believe we need to look at some of the areas. I will use Lucas Street as an example. I know there is an issue with reference to parking, but I believe if we strongly enforce no parking along those said streets that have sufficient space that if for a vehicle to pull over, and then you have continuous flow of the traffic, that will mitigate some of the congestion.
But are we also looking to making these streets one way?
Exactly.
And even, I don't know if there is a concerted effort to make streets one way at some times in the day. Whether we're saying 7 to 9 because of those challenges, we make it a one-way flow, recognizing that this will happen, and that can ease some of the congestion.
Yes, because I had that as one of my recommendations. If you're familiar with the Montu Road in Grand Grandlands. This is a road I strongly recommend that we need to make one-way, 7 to 9, going towards Grandlands on mornings. You know that whole road normally have vehicle park along it, so you cannot really facilitate the two-way traffic. So between the period 7 to 9, we recommend one way towards Grandlands, and the reverse happens between 4 and 6 in the after work.
The other question I will ask you in this regard is whether or not there should be vehicles parked there. So one way, 7 to 9, and in the opposite direction, 4 to 6 as a recommendation, or no parking between 7 to 9, because I know in some developed countries you have alternate parking, and you have to move your vehicle, or you'll be in problems.
Yeah, and we don't want to be too high-handed in our approach, because that parking, despite it contributes to obstruction, it becomes like a norm. So we need to have some community engagements with the people involved who is contributing to that, to hear the concerns, to advise them as to the way forward, the reason for what we are doing, and then we can implement the no parking.
CEO, as you would have looked at Grenada, where are some of the problem areas that we need some immediate attention by way of congestion?
Brighton, take for instance, right in St. George's itself, by the terminus. One of the things that we observed, and one of our board members, Mr. Campbell, went up there and he put a drum up in there and looked down at what was happening. And one of the things we found out was that a lot of the congestion is actually caused by pedestrian crossing. Every time a pedestrian crosses, and I think it's you made a point on that in one of these a little while ago, Mackenzie. Every time a pedestrian crosses, it holds back the traffic. And if you add that up, you'll see how traffic is really, really held back in that area. So what it means we have to do some critical analysis, some critical studies on how we could rearrange that whole area, how we could get the pedestrian to, as a matter of fact, one of the things that we are doing, we are looking to rearrange that whole terminal. We are going to reorganize the terminal, redirect things that happen in the terminal. We have had some discussions, and we have had some discussion with the association, Mr. Mackenzie and his team. We walked it a couple of times, looking at what we can do, looking at the roadway. We haven't engaged the police as yet, but we'll get to that pretty soon. How to reorganize the entire thing, looking at the flows, because we want to upgrade, and that's another thing we get to listen with, the whole infrastructure, but that's another thing. So, but in apologies.
Freudian slip, we'll work with you.
Yeah, but in St. George's, just that area is a critical area, because after that board member made that observation, I went and I stood up and I looked at it, and I'm seeing that causes, it slows down traffic tremendously, and that's in the heart of St. George's.
Right. So we have bus terminus pedestrian crossing. I think another notorious area will be CK's in Grandlands by the Sugar Mill roundabout pedestrian crossing. Precisely. Are there challenges elsewhere in Grenada that you have notified? Identified, sorry. I'm speaking of, we know Lucas Street because of the schools, and that has been cited. But trying to get to Grandlands on a morning using that main thoroughfare, Belmont Grandlands, bumper-to-bumper traffic. Grandlands Valley, quite often bumper-to-bumper traffic. Those I can identify in the south of the island. You identify the town of St. George. Do we have similar challenges in the towns, Grenville, Gove, Sauters? Do we have similar challenges, or is it a St. George's problem?
One minute help out here. Let's stay in St. George's for a moment. Most of the roundabouts have issues, right? We drive on the left side of the road, so you have to give way to vehicle on the right. So if you're coming from St. Paul's again, you would find that whole White Gun area is usually backed up because you have to give way to all the vehicles that come from Tempe.
Right.
So as long as there's a long flow, you're not going anywhere for a long time.
Right.
Right. Let's go to Sugar Mill area. You're coming from the valley. Same thing. You go into Lansapine, they have the right of way. So there's a backup. Vehicles go way back in the valley. Being a road user very often, I mean, that's what I do. I'm on the road. Drivers too contribute a lot to that. Typical example, that roundabout by Tropicana. If you're going towards St. George's, right, and you need to make a right to go to the gardens, you would find, instead of somebody with a bare immediate right, you drive in the middle of the road. So what you do now, you block the road, you block the lane that would have been free on the left, that traffic going to Port Highway could function. I don't know if it's legal that Mr. Baptiste in traffic could probably do a line there. I think that would help. I mean, it's one lane, but if you put a line there, directing vehicles to stay right, I think that could help. And there's another problem too, right on the roundabout by the garden. If you're going up the lane, the traffic that going up the lane have the right of way. So you'll find that Tantine, the top Tantine, is backed up. And there's an issue there with that by the court, where we have vehicles parking there, blocking a lane, a lot of congestion again. So we could start by doing these things in St. George's, and that's low-hanging fruits that we could start right now with and make these adjustments, and that could alleviate a lot of the congestions. And I didn't even touch on if you have an accident again.
Right.
That's another one.
Okay.
Just to add to Mr. Mackenzie's point about the roundabout, I've been to a couple meetings sometime last year where the ministry was organizing a roundabout policy. And what he mentioned there, because the roundabouts are very wide, so you can create this 2-lane, so the traffic that not making that right turn on the roundabout will not be obstructed at no point in time. So I know that is something they are looking into.
Okay, I'm going to stick on the roundabout, but that will have to be when we come back, because it is time for our first break. So we'll be right back as we speak the future of road traffic management in Grenada.
GRENDEC Community Partnership Initiative.
On behalf of Netball Grenada, we want to say a special thank you for the contribution made. We are certain that the contribution that had been given would be put into good use and we would bring home great results.
GRENDEC, energizing our community.
Viewers and listeners, we're talking the future of road traffic management in Grenada. We are discussing roundabouts, and ASPI will come to you with this one. We are talking about that roundabout by the Sir Eric Matthew Gary Botanical Gardens, and there is a pedestrian crossing going through the roundabout. So despite or in addition to the challenges mentioned by Derek on utilizing that pedestrian crossing, there is utilizing that roundabout, there's a pedestrian crossing that's going through. One would say that the work of the roundabout is being impeded by having a pedestrian crossing there. How do you respond?
Yes, and that is true. By the pedestrian crossing being there, it will impede the operation as to the true meaning and rules that governs a roundabout. But we still have to bear in mind of pedestrian safety, because where else a pedestrian will have to utilize to cross, and we all know a number of persons use that area there by walking to get access to the botanical gardens, the ministerial complex. So in its true sense, you have to look at both aspects. Yes, the crossing will contribute to congestion because the rules governing the roundabout cannot be applied in its true sense, but at the same time, we'll have to look at the safety of the pedestrians.
Is it a safety issue, or we ask pedestrians just to walk 30 yards down the road, which is a good health issue, as opposed to crossing in the roundabout?
It could. Your suggestion could be a good one as well, but I still believe it is a safety issue, because without that crossing there and they have to take that risk to cross the road could be a problem.
Okay. Some of the plans, David, I'd want to come to you as we look at the work of the commission. Let's start off with the bus terminus, because you mentioned that infrastructure needs to be revisited. What are some of the thoughts there in addressing the bus terminus in order to improve the traffic in general?
In terms of the bus terminus in St. George's, one of the things that we want to do is have it totally refurbished, and redirect the flow of the buses in and out of that area. Also, the flow that takes place on the road, on Melville Street itself, we haven't drilled down to exactly what we want to do. We started discussions with the bus association, and we have our concept, and the next thing to do is to engage our next major stakeholder, which is the police, because they have a very, very critical part to play in whatever suggestion that we have for anything there, because we want to realign things in front there, so that our next step is to engage the police in terms of that in St. George's.
Derek, is there a challenge with the bus terminus in the way it's currently operating, and what are your thoughts on adjustments in order to improve the situation?
Yeah, we would agree that the bus terminus needs some serious work done. We have an entrance and an exit the very same place.
Okay. What is the bus population in terms of that terminus?
You mean in terms of buses?
Yeah.
It's safe to say maybe about 400-500 buses use the terminus daily from the different zones.
Okay.
Yeah, and if all the buses was to stay in there would not be enough space for that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's one of the challenges. The exit and the entrance is the same place. The bus terminus is not humane for the public. It's very hot. If you go to travel there with the number 8s and 7s, and in the middle of the bus terminus, where they have to wait to board a bus, it's very, very, very hot.
And they'll probably be waiting for some time, because 7s and 8s, they travel to...
Yeah. They go to Happy Hill. Yeah, and Boca and these places. Right. Then where the Grand Anse buses have to station, we call it the holding bay, it's in the sun. So what happened when these buses stay for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours waiting for a trip? If you don't have air condition, you're in problem. Usually we have to go and start the buses maybe 15 or 20 minutes before, so it could cool down before you get to the loading bay. But then you have the older model buses that don't have air condition, and it's not really a nice feeling for passengers commuting, going to work, and then you have to go into a very hot bus.
Right.
So I have written, a matter of fact, to Port Authority to ask them if they could cover that area, because what happened, most of the other buses, they are stationed, because the terminuses are upstairs, so they are stationed on the concrete area. Right. But the Grand Anse buses are in that big open area, so it's very, very hot. And Yeah, so these are some of the challenges that we have there. Apart from, I didn't want to get into the bathroom facilities and this thing, but I agree with CEO that it really needs some serious attention.
Okay.
Let me just add to what Mr. Mackenzie is saying. The terminus, the way the negotiations now with the port, so that terminus will be invested in the commission.
Okay.
Interest, right? And we have done our concept designs in terms of how we want to see. We haven't gone out to the public with it as yet because we haven't finalized it with our major stakeholders. But Mackenzie brought a critical aspect. Inside that terminus is very hot, and people breathing all this noxious fuel. People may be getting sick and they don't understand why they are getting sick. But that noxious fuel, that diesel fuel, they breathe in all the time. It's carcinogenic, you know. So that our intention, as part of our redesign of that whole area, is to inside there is where we'll have a hole in where people will be able to go in and sit down and relax, and you could have your phone chat. We'll totally reshape that area, make it a passenger holding area rather than a bus thoroughfare. So those are some of the ideas that we have for that area, among other ideas for that area.
So we're looking at a reconstruction, refitting more or less of the terminus.
Yes.
One of the things I'm going to ask if it's going to be addressed or if the commission has looked at is that the terminus right now closes at what, 9 p.m.? 8 p.m. And we have people from the hotel industry, and tourism is a mainstay of our economy, finishing work at 11. So basically there's no public transportation. What responsibility does the commission have to ensure that there is safe and reliable public transportation for workers to get home?
All right. If I could go back to the mandate of the commission, the commission's mandate is to provide safe, reliable, affordable, and accessible transportation to everyone. And when I say everyone, whether you have a disability, whether you're young, but it doesn't matter. Every single person must have safe transportation. When I say safe transportation, I think we alluded to the amount of accidents that are happening on the road. And when you leave home, you want to reach back home safe. So we want to ensure, and we do that through proper putting in inspection systems in place, so we want to have a safe traveling public. Right? Reliable is when we come into the timing. We want to ensure that when people want to get to, whether they're going to work, whether they're going to business, whether they're going to pleasure, that they could reach there on time. So it has to be a reliable system where we work with schedules and those things, right? Affordable, we want to ensure that every single person in, whether it's Grenada, Carriacou, or Petit Martinique, or whether they're coming from Sotters or wherever it is, good, that they could afford. Somebody in Sotters, we want to ensure that somebody in Sotters could work in Grand Anse and do have a problem. Whether they're working in the hotel industry, wherever it is, and whether it's a rotating ship, we want to ensure that they could reach on time. So those are some of the things that we actually put in together, getting all the concepts and things together, so that the traveling public in Grenada could be assured that the traveling experience will be something that is nice, for want of a better word. And we are working closely with our stakeholders. Some of the information, we haven't gone to them as yet because it has reached a stage where we could take it to them as yet. But key stakeholders is, Mr. Mackenzie, we have quite a lot of discussion. We're having discussions, and there are a lot more discussions to take place. We've been having some discussions with Mr. Matthews, especially in terms of the warden. He's been tremendous, very tremendous in helping us with the wardens, and we'll continue with the discussion towards having a safe, reliable, affordable, and accessible. Every single person, whether you're blind, every single person, if they choose to travel by public transport, the system's supposed to allow them to do it. Whether you have wheelchair ramps, whether you have holding bars, whether you have audio announcement. Third, every single person must be allowed to travel. If they can do, if they want to do it, they should be allowed to do it.
Derek, is the NBA ready to respond to a public transportation system that is affordable, reliable, safe, and accessible?
Well, the NBA been responding to that for over 17 years now. It's just that no one was listening. All what Mr. Bartholomew speaks of is not possible if it's not financed. There's a cost to everything, right? For 17 years, we've been operating at the same bus fare. 17 years ago, a bus was about $80,000 or $90,000. Right now, it's $170,000. And we've been clamoring for help, and it just went on deaf ear. So how possible we could be ready if the assistance is not there? We're doing a public good. So it has to be teamwork. It has to be the commission via government, listening the challenges that we face and partnering with us to do that. Reliable comes at a cost. Affordable comes at a cost. Who is willing to take up the cost? It has to be subsidized. If government were to bring transportation, they will subsidize it. So all we've been saying to help us, because you have an axe over our head, we can't do nothing to the bus fare. All right? Recently, we had to put up a red ribbon and so on to get some attention from Mr. Bartholomew. So
Well, tell our viewers and listeners why the red ribbons and the threats of strikes.
Well, I don't know about the threat of strike. But the industry is under some serious pressure, and we need that axe to come out of our head. Every day we go to the grocery just like the regular person, the items that we buy keep going up. But when I had to top up on a quart of oil, every time I go to the gas station, it's a different price. All right? We have to buy the same cleaning stuff that you use in your house, we have to buy to keep those buses clean. All right? What really struck me recently, there was an operator that waited 10 months to get a bus, and that's some of the challenges that we have. 10 months to get his bus. $170,000 for it. His insurance is $15,000. His excess is $15,000, which means to pay a $15,000 a year insurance, you have to save $1,200 a month. And if you were to meet in an accident, the first $15,000 is on you. How possible we could afford to sustain this kind of, in the industry, sustain ourselves, to keep quality buses? And we have a cap on our head. We can't move the bus fare to make it a little more sustainable, that we can, invest in the buses. The ladies complain when they travel that the seat is damaged and the stockings and all these things. How can we? Just imagine you have the guys with the older model buses, what we call the old school. They probably would get 3 or 4 lines, and they have to come out since 3 and 4 o'clock. You see, they're camping outside the terminus to get 3, so they get all the trips, so they could get 3 or 4 lines, 5 if it's possible. Makes $200 after that, because that trip is about $30, $35. How possible these guys could sustain a bus? They have their family. After you make $200, you have to go in the gas station. You have to pay the terminus on entry. How? And all we've been saying, just give the industry some attention, because when the structured business bring in goods, they pass that cost on to the customer, so we have to pay. But when the expenses come on us in terms of high insurance, operational costs, the cost of the bus that move from up to almost about $90,000 more, I mean, how are we doing it?
Let me ask you this. Is part of the problem that the bus owners have not treated their business as a business, and by virtue of that, there isn't the data necessarily as a company bus owner to show the challenges? There isn't the opportunity to get the type of tax rebates that other businesses will get from filing corporate tax returns, etc. So you treat it as a hustle. There's no documentation. There's no taking advantage of the possibility of rebates, and therefore you're just operating a cash in hand type of business.
Well, that's true. That I mean, there are some. We're not a corporate, but we have some. Not most, but a few operators have their business registered. In terms like me, I do taxes and all of that. The problem here is we just don't have the control that we want over our industry. Yes, we come and we operate.
But where I'm going is that it can't be willy-nilly raise the fare whenever the price of everything goes up, when you are neglecting to take advantage of some of the things that are built in for a regular business. In other words, you purchase tires, that's a natural expense, you get a rebate on that. But if you're not registered, that $200, $500, whatever you pay on tires, I'm hoping that you buy new tires that are not the used. That just goes.
The problem we have with that, over the years, there was once when government gave operators, I think it was a 50% concession. The problem we have with these things is that when government change, it goes away. There is nothing there to keep it in place, and that's the problem. The only thing that most government don't change is the bus fare. If the bus was to change and the government was to change, but it stays, but a government could come and change a policy and say, listen, we're not giving you that 50% that we was giving you again. And these are some of the challenges that we have. Apart from management, the transportation system, I mean, we've been telling Mr. Bartholomew and them that lately, lack management. Because what happened before, Mr. Baptiste might be able to speak to that too, to get a bus, you had to apply before you buy. So you had to apply, you get a letter from the association, the transport board would approve it, give you a letter to go to the bank, but that went down the drain. And then what happened? The market was just flooded with buses. They removed all the criteria that was there for one to buy a bus to come and operate. And anybody could have just come buy a bus and they're sure to get a sticker. And that's some of the problems. So what happened now, some of the routes that are more lucrative get saturated, and then the other zones get underserved.
I see you're nodding, ASP. Is this the case in terms of do we have too many buses on the road, or poor distribution of the buses that we have?
Poor distribution.
Poor distribution.
Poor distribution of the buses.
So how can we address this? And I ask this from the standpoint because I believe the Commission is speaking now of filling in on backlogs as one of the new moves, so that if there are lots of people standing, no bus for a route, redirect other buses to take that load. Will this work? How that would impact on the adherence of stickers and routes, and how do we harmonize that? Because it seems as though we're moving to structure, to undo a structure that's already in place.
Yeah, so because it's the sole responsibility of the Transport Commission, who is responsible for dealing with the application of bus route stickers. So they have to examine all the different routes, and they will have to do the analysis. They'll have to have persons on the ground to check to see how the routes are serviced and to see which routes need buses, and from that they should be able to make a better decision in terms of, because really and truly, as Mr. Mackenzie put it, the lucrative zones, the zone 1, the zone 2, those buses are saturated. But even though they are saturated, you're still seeing problems with the people not getting bus after 4 to go to the zone 2 route. So there is still an issue in terms of management as well.
Okay, 440-1252, that's the number you can call in order to join this conversation as we look at traffic management, road traffic management in Grenada. CEO, how do you tackle this problem? I know it's your mantle to take care of, but just in the redistribution of buses, any ideas as to how this can be done, how it can be done fairly, and how do you get buy-in from the NBA?
Okay. First of all, we agree, the Transport Commission agree with the position that Mr. McKenzie took in terms of 17 years and there has been no serious incremental in prices. And we are looking into that right now. We acknowledge that that is so. And we are actually looking into it right now. Right? But in terms of what we talk about, where we look at, and this is a short-term thing, in terms of we looking at what's happening in St. George's, where they're built up, we actually working with the bus operators right now, trying to put a pilot program in place to address some of those issues. And it will work where when you have a build-up, we have buses that have been pre-selected that will go in and move out the people. So every time we see a build-up, there will be a notice, there will be somebody will alert us that there's a build-up, and there will be buses here that are ready to go in and clear the bus.
So the old school buses will get work, is what I'm hearing.
Well,
I see Mackenzie smiles.
But it's a work in progress.
Right.
We're trying to address some of the low-hanging fruits while we work on the much larger picture. And the much larger picture is to operate a proper scheduled system, working in conjunction with the bus operators, the bus association, working in conjunction with the bus association to have a proper scheduled system.
When can we anticipate this? And again, I can go back to the hotel workers, the workers from the gas stations, etc. Schedule gives predictability. So whether it is work, whether it's entertainment, whether it's business places opening later, that schedule is a critical part of national development.
The pilot project, we have to test the pilot out first and see how it works. And then the data that comes back from it will help us to plan proper schedules and those things.
Okay, we do have our first caller online, so let's take that caller. Good evening, caller, and welcome.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, I'd like to make 2 points, please. One, concerning the traffic, controlling the traffic on in blocking a lane, I should say. Yeah. Why can't we put measures in place to make sure that the businesses that set up the business along the side of the road can organize their own parking instead of having blocking a lane, as you would say. The other point is that can we build a walkover on the Sir Matthew Gary bus roundabout so that you cross from Tam CC side over to the other side in the air? Yeah, that pedestrian can do that. Yeah. And there seems to be ample space there to do that. And the other thing, why is the RGPF and the insurance company continuing to license and insure vehicles for people who don't have anywhere to park it?
Okay.
This is an easy way to control this thing. Over 50% of the people parking on the side of the road can build something to get the vehicle off the road.
Okay. Thank you very much, caller. ASB?
Right, so the last comment he made with reference to why the RGPF are licensing vehicles with persons that don't have place to park it. In everything we do, from a law enforcement standpoint, it must be in sync with the law. And as it stands presently, the law, for someone to get a vehicle license, the law is clear as it relates to that, and it has nothing to do with whether the person have an area to park the vehicle or not. So
we have another caller online. Good evening, caller, and welcome.
I was a bus conductor. And why I want to in our because
Hold on, caller, if you can lower the volume on the television, if that's what you're listening to us on, and just in the phone because you're struggling to hear.
One, when you have to go for St. David, and what I was work on, St. George's, Beaton, Formrose, Latan, and Grenville. The port authority told me I cannot take the route, I can't take a passenger to go. So let the port authority tell them, drug and passengers. That is my problem.
I think what the caller was signaling is just what the problem that you're trying to avert. Because his sticker was saying one thing, he couldn't help out a situation in another area, and I think that's what you're attempting to address now. Yeah. Okay. So that one is going to be handled. Hopefully, do you envision a problem, Derek, with the NBA?
I think this contradicts the SRO, or the Road Traffic Act, because as it is, and that's why we have a problem with pirating, and you will find that I always talk about that over and over. But personally, I believe that to fix public transportation, that's the first step that we need to take to fix pirating. That's why we have route stickers. So it identifies the route that the omnibus operates. Bus with a number 1 sticker should not be walking on a number 2 zone, except there was only one exception, but actually not one, but between 5 and 8 in the morning, it gives you that. If you're living, let's say, in Sotels and you're operating in Grandins, it gives you permission for one trip between that time to get to your place of commencement, or if you're doing staff or you're on a hire. That's the only 3 reasons. So even what we're discussing in terms of with the pool to go to another zone, that is an issue.
We have to go to Parliament.
We have to open up the SRO.
Okay.
To fix that.
I believe we have another caller online. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. Good evening to you and to the followers. A couple of quick things. First of all, it's embarrassing to see how we repeat the same thing over and over. We're swinging on that gate. The problems we're talking about now, they were there 10 years ago, and some of them even before, and they're being compounded with the increase of, vehicles being registered on our road. A couple of things. First of all, traffic is generated by travel, and we cannot control traffic unless we do something about rationalizing travel. We are not using the digital age to reduce the number of the amount of travel to St. George's, for instance. There are a number of things that can be done online through e-governance. There are a number of things, for instance, the schools. We're looking at the children now as I think it's a sort of pilot program. But eventually, the bigger problem will be the workers. Because unlike a child who can choose a school, and they can take a school closer to them, the parent has to take the job wherever they get it and comply with the hours of work that they are offered. And I think we have to rationalize this thing about schools. We have to make sure that the children attend the schools closest to them. The parents do not have that option. So eventually we have to address the situation. But when the children come home, if the parents can't get home, we still have another problem. So the larger problem which has to be addressed is the problem of public good being offered by private sector individuals, and the government has to play a much more active role. Another matter of the congestion, and the police officer mentioned something there that reminded me. We tend to make rules to facilitate the lawbreakers and not the law-abiding citizens. If an area is a no-parking area, nobody should park. You have to make it a one-way street. You see humps. We try to facilitate the lawbreakers, pass the laws, enforce them, penalize the lawbreakers, and make it easy for life to go on as normal. Let me give you a quick example. I went to register a car, to get a pass for a car, just a permit to drive from True Blue to the Dusty Highway to get it inspected. It was not the data pass. And when I went in the evening, they said to me, you have to come the next day. More travel, unnecessary travel. Why? Because people normally take the permit and they don't travel, they don't use the car the same day, they use it another day. But it's not necessary. Why can't I take a permit now to drive to take my car the 15th of December, travel, and when I come back the next day, because I have my permit? Because people break the law, you change the law. So we have to be a lot more forceful and more ordered in the way we make laws and the regulations and so.
Thank you very much, Colin. Thank you for that contribution. Any responses in accommodating the lawbreakers?
I would not say accommodating. As I said, it reached to a stage where it becomes a norm. So we want to have some engagement first. Okay. It's not that we're not going in that direction where we'll enforce the no parking and so forth. But we believe because of the stage it's at, we want to have a form of communication.
In response to the overpasses, the caller referenced the Sir Martigeri roundabout area, but there probably might be other places where we can have overpass for pedestrians and easy stuff.
I know they spoke of the intention by CKs. Not too sure if CEO have
any other areas.
Even in St. George's, I think we have enough design engineers, and the world is at our fingertips that we could probably come up with a solution, probably some overpass solution there if we really sit down and think about it. Because the idea is to transform that entire area into something that is totally different from what it is now in terms of the movement, the flow of traffic, the flow of passengers, and everything else.
Okay. I think it's almost time for us to take our second and final break. We brought callers in a little bit ahead of time, but so we'll do that in a little bit. One of the things that I just want to ask you, ASP, is whether there's any synchronization between licensed vehicles and insured vehicles. As we were speaking of, the lawbreakers, can a police officer on an app tell whether or not the vehicle is licensed, but also if it's insured to be on the road?
Right. The app is designed to facilitate both, to determine whether a vehicle is licensed or whether a vehicle is insured. But the insurance company is responsible for updating that information on the app. Unfortunately, it's only about 2 to 3 of the insurance company that
can the insurance companies be held liable for not updating the app?
No. As it stands now.
So it's not a requirement, and it's something that you recommend they do, and they do, but it's not a requirement in law.
So it's still when someone gets a vehicle license, where they have to produce the insurance certificate, we know at the officer of the Inland Revenue can do that updating. But the one-time updating, we solely depend on the insurance company. So we cannot use the app to determine if a vehicle
is this something that we need to go to the minister for to make sure that it's a requirement of insurance companies?
Yes, it might be.
Because other than that, there is a loophole where we have uninsured vehicles putting pedestrians at risk.
True, and it defeats the purpose of the app, really.
Okay, all right. We have another caller online. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Yes. This question is for ASP Matisse. Earlier on in the program, you said that it is an offense to park, to garage a vehicle on the side of the road. Yeah, but when I spoke about the police and allowing the vehicles to be licensed, you said you have to go within the law. Yeah, so isn't it the law that they shouldn't park on the road? Yeah, you should also take that into consideration, because you're dealing now with a situation where people are parking illegally on the main thoroughfare. And I have a question for Mr. McKenzie. When it comes to both routes and stickers, yeah, I think demand and supply should take effect. I want to buy a bus and go and run it on a route that is not profitable. So if a million buses is running on the Granite route, that means it's profitable. Nobody's going to run the bus on a route that doesn't make money. So why is the stickers and then you wait for a certain time and you apply to the bus association to get a sticker to run where you want to?
Okay. All right. Supply and demand should determine, or in collaboration with the Transport Commission, you'll be able to know where the demand is. And yes, supply and demand.
Well, there's supply and demand. I think the reason why let's talk to Granans is because maintenance is a lot lower in terms of Granans. The route is flatter and so on. But you wouldn't want to go on a route that is saturated, and that's why all the lawlessness comes. Mm-hmm. I always say that bus service is not supposed to be a hustle. You know, when somebody steps into your bus, they're basically telling you that I trust you with my life. And that's why, I mean, Mr. Baptiste could speak to that bus license is the hardest license to get, right? But to answer the caller, supply and demand is there, but people tend to come to the routes that are more lucrative, and in so doing, the other routes suffer. So I think the approach should be, I'm not saying that we should not issue stickers, and you should say to somebody that, listen, that route is filled, we have a position on the other route, are you willing to accept it?
And CEO, isn't this the professionalism one would anticipate with a national transportation service, albeit not nationalized, but by private owners? This is where the demand is based on our surveys, and hence these are the routes that are now available for someone to apply for a license to run.
Yes, I'm Colin. We at the GDC will be very data-driven. You know, we will do an analysis. We'll work with the bus association. We'll work with the police to come up with whatever solution that is necessary. We understand what's happening. We have a good idea what's happening. We know what's happening with the Granans route. So we will look to reorganize how we issue bus stickers.
Okay.
So that's something that we are looking at right now, and we'll also do it in conjunction with our major stakeholders.
Wonderful. We have another caller online. Good evening, caller, and welcome.
Good evening. It appears that this panel is only talking to South Grenada. You don't seem to be addressing the whole of Grenada issue. West Coast is a threat to the whole service of Grenada. The road, we have no roads. The roads that we have almost impassable, and the agriculture problem is roads. If only we have roads to take us into the mountains, we would have more and better service with our agriculture projects. The farmers can't get the products to and from market because there are no roads. And this is a major issue that needs to be addressed by the whole of the traffic management. Mm-hmm. And because if we haven't got roads, how are we going to get from A to B and B to Z? As I said earlier, West Coast is a threat to the whole road traffic management.
Thank you very much, caller. And two important points here. One, the West Coast access and of the West Coast, and then the access again to farm roads and making sure those are pliable. I know that there's some work going on in Granitang in terms of widening, but if you can speak to the philosophy of widening of the roads, making it more accessible, safer for drivers and pedestrians. And if it falls within the Commission's responsibility to address things like farm roads, etc., to have the produce get to where they need to go.
Let me add this, Colin. In terms of the mandate of the Grenada Transport Commission, it's not only to move people, it's goods and services also.
Right.
You know, so what the caller is saying falls right into the goods and services section. Everyone seems to just be focusing on the moving people, you know. But our mandate, part of our mandate, is goods and services. So that's an area that we have to focus on. You know, take for instance your road network. You know, take for instance, you know, how our road network will meet up with emergency vehicles when a fire takes place. You know, can the fire service vehicle get to that wherever the fire is, you know, quickly without any sort of impedance in the way? You know, police responding to whatever it is. Do we have to make certain roads in certain jurisdiction? You have what you call a S-sticker on vehicles. That those vehicles are allowed to go access particular road that other vehicles will not be able to go on. You know, so the point I'm making is that we're not only looking at people, we're looking at making sure that goods and services are taken care of with the same thing: safe, reliable, good, affordable.
Or 40-foot containers moving at high speeds across the nation's road network is an issue and falls within your ambit, I take it.
Yes, and safety is another critical. That safety, one of our things that we have to look at is safety. That's a critical thing, and we at the Grenada Transport Commission will pay particular attention to safety of all vehicles. Again, working with the Grenada Police Force, good. That's an area that we have to pay very, very close attention to. Safety in terms of licensing and inspection of vehicles. You know, again, working with the Grenada Police Force, we want to change the whole dynamics of how we inspect vehicles.
Will we see carbon emissions being part of the inspection and not just left indicator, right indicator, blow your horn? That speaks nothing to road safety whatsoever.
Collins, it will be a totally different thing. But as I keep saying, we'll be working in conjunction with the police. They've been doing it for all years, so we work with them to come up with the best possible solution for the population.
Okay. We have another caller in line. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good night. Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, good night. Yeah. I have a suggestion concerning the bus terminal, because, you know, you got buses coming from different parts of Grenada, and they're all congregating in one area. I said it about a year, 2 years ago. That area outside Melville Street, all up to the stadium, that area is pretty shallow. Why can't they backfill that area, reclaim that area? And they could make the buses who's traveling on the west and up Granite Town use that area. The buses that traveling St. David and Grandal use the bottom area. I believe that will ease up the traffic. And also the people who are selling the market, even in the market, and the people selling on the side of the road, they all, when they reclaim, they make provision for them up there as well. I believe that will ease up a lot of the traffic in the town area and beyond. Secondly, the buses, I believe the buses, they're talking about areas that is lucrative to run. The people who been given bus license that their area of running is not lucrative. Why don't the government subsidize those buses and also give them the authority to run buses even up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, so the hotel people who are living out of town and people who are living in the country will come down because they know they're going to get a bus to take them back home. And the people who work at the hotel, they know all up to 1:30, 2 o'clock, they will get a bus to go home. So probably that is subsidize those buses because they're not making much money during the day because of the area they travel. So you give them subsidies, and the people who lucrative, you let them get a lucrative area to run. And I believe that will ease up the traffic.
All right. Thank you very much, caller. So two suggestions there. One is the expansion of the bus terminal area through reclaiming of land and taking into account the vendors. And the second aspect is subsidizing some of the lower performing routes to encourage people to run those routes. But what it does is basically provides the access. The caller mentioned people coming down into St. George. I want to go up to one of the outer parishes and have dependable transportation to return home. Response
to that. Over the last 6 months, Collins, we have been working very diligently, putting things together. We have some report. CDB did a report. I think Ernst & Young did a report, and there were other reports that were done. And we have been looking at the report. We've been studying the reports. We've been merging it with our own ideas on how things are supposed to be. We have come up with our concept. We have come up with our plan. Right? Our next step is to take those plans and concept, because our plans and concept, all those things that a lot of the callers talk about are within all those things. They're being answered in those plans and those concepts. Right? Our next step with what we have is to take it to our major stakeholders. And I say our major stakeholders, it's like the bus association and the police. Right? The plans and concept that we have is not cast in cement. So we take it to them, for them to look at it. We'll sit down, we'll discuss it. If they have to do any little modification, we'll do it. So after we move from our major stakeholders, then what we plan to do is take it to the public. What we plan to do is to move to all the different parishes, have meetings, listen to their views, show them what we've been working on, get their comment. We might have to change something, but no one person, one organization is repository of our knowledge, So that's how we want to do it, to come up with a final solution. But a lot of the things that are spoken about, a lot of these callers spoke about, actually in those plans, in those programs.
ASP, we are almost out of time, so we go some rapid fire. Do we have sensors on the traffic lights? And do we need to upgrade so that the traffic lights can actually respond to the demands in real time of our build-ups?
Right, so there were some studies done prior to the traffic lights implementation. How the traffic lights designed to function by programming. So the lights are programmed to accommodate the traffic based on the survey that was done. So it was not designed or programmed to facilitate the peak or rush hour traffic.
But shouldn't we have anticipated if a survey is being done, there'll be different times of the day? So in other words, the traffic between 7 and 9 is naturally different between 10 and 12, which is naturally different between 12 to 3, and we move on.
Yes, but the lights are not programmed to facilitate different timings at different time of the day.
Okay.
It's one standard timing.
How is that easy to get adjusted, or do we just have to live with the system that we currently have?
Well, I cannot really speak to the full-time operation of the lights. It's the Ministry of Works, CTO, that falls under his portfolio.
Should we see the incorporation of, and this way I'm going, AI, because some of the traffic lights have cameras. Yeah. Can the cameras tell us, using artificial intelligence, whether or not the speed of the changes or the duration of the lights needs to be adjusted, one, and violators, are we now have enshrined in law where pictures can be taken of violators and tickets issued because of that? What is the use of the cameras on top of the traffic lights is really the essential question I'm asking.
Yes, so the amendments will have to be made to the road traffic light signal regulation. That should have been done prior to the re-implementation of the operation of the traffic light, but that is yet to be done. Yes, there are cameras set up. I cannot say whether or not if it's full-time in operation as yet. That again is something that will have to be addressed by the CTO.
So, okay, so in other words, we're lagging behind by what, almost 2 years now since the traffic lights have been set up?
No, the traffic lights went in full operation not 2 years, not even more than a year now. Yeah, it was set up, but it's talking about full-time.
I'm talking functioning. I'm talking functioning. Yes.
Yeah, it's not 2 years.
Not 2 years. But certainly it's been a year, and these are regulations that should have been done before it was implemented. So we're certainly over a year in getting this done.
Yes, it's something that needs to be addressed.
All right. As we talk of the safety, CEO, let me come back to you. Are we going to see a place where we spoke of the inspection of vehicles, but electric vehicles, I'm just talking now, so carbon emissions, cleaner vehicles on our roadways. Are we going to see a system like in likes of Bermuda and other places where there's a bike sharing arrangement, whether it's bicycle or moped? So you ride it to a point, you park it up, you take the next one, or you do one available. Do we see ourselves getting there as Grenada?
I'm saying yes, Collins. As part of our concept going forward, we are looking to establish what you call hubs, and it's multimodal. You could get buses, you could get taxis, you could get, like you said, bikes. It will be multimodal hubs. That's one thing we're looking to establish. You know, but I just want to draw back to something, if I'm permitted to. You know, a couple of the callers talked about they've been hearing things for years and years and years and years. You know, and since I've been here, you know, people are telling me, hey, you know, something, wait and see, nothing will happen, you know. But I'm telling them no. And while I'm telling them it's not so this time around, because I know the people that I'm working with, I've been involved in a lot of projects, not only in different islands, in Trinidad and in different islands. I've been involved in it, and I've done it very, very successfully. So I have a good idea of people that I'm working with, you know, their vision, you know, their commitment. And one of the things that I've realized is that people that I've been in contact with so far have a certain amount of commitment. You know, Mr. Mackenzie, we have quite a lot of discussions. He have his views, and he holding very hard to his views. You know, and I respect him very, very much for that. You know, Mr. Batiste, I know he's been working very, very excellent with the wardens, with Mr. Radix, because your name is being called all the time. But most of all, I think I have a very excellent board, you know. Mr. Francis Paul, you know, I think he's a visionary. He holds his board together, and there are very good technical people on the board that driving the whole process forward, you know. So I'm confident that with that, and I think
so the expertise exists where we have someone, a civil engineer or others trained in logistics, that can really analyze and make recommendations in order for us to
not particularly trained in logistics, but we have access to it. Okay. And important thing is not, you see, Colin's system, procedures, technology doesn't do, it's people. People with commitment, because if you don't have the technology, you could find the technology, but you must have the commitment to find the technology. And what I've realized that on the board that we have now, they have that kind of people who are willing and they're driven to make sure that the goal and the vision of the commission is realized. And I also know too that the Prime Minister, he gave us the mandate. He said, make sure that there is safe, reliable, affordable, accessible transportation for everybody. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, what he said is that he personally, like I said earlier on, if somebody living in Sotes and they want to work in a hotel in Grand Anse, they should be able to do that comfortable and get the necessary transportation anytime they want.
And I believe the Prime Minister is also the Minister of Works, and he's MP for St. David. So, Derek, will we see a bus route from Grenville to Grand Anse? There's been talk about this before. It has not happened. But the majority of people who will leave St. Andrew to come to St. George are working in the Grand Anse area. Will we see a bus route from Grenville to Grand Anse?
On paper, there is. I personally don't see that as necessary. It would leave a lot of congestion. It brings a lot of congestions to Grand Anse. First, we have to try to sort out the issues that we have in terms of the traffic congestion in Grand Anse first before we get to that point.
But we have people taking 2 buses now.
Well, yeah, but the 2 buses would connect. That bus is not flowing to Grand Anse. If that happens, then the buses coming from Grenville to Grand Anse, where would it be stationed? What would be the regulations that define, would it be coming to compete with another Grand Anse bus? And then we have to take a look at Grand Anse Valley. That congestion where in the morning you can't even go up there before 9 o'clock. A bus coming from Grenville to bring persons to work in Grand Anse is a big issue. That's something that the transport study should have addressed.
Can I respond to that? We have all the concept. We are at the stage now where we are about to go out to the major stakeholders, right? So we will be engaging Mr. McKenzie and his team, which will address what you're talking about.
Okay.
You know.
All right. The other thing I have, and I believe the pilot project is for St. David. Grenada is the only island. Anyone who has ever looked at this program knows I bring it up whenever we're talking about transportation, so I will not disappoint you. A public transportation system to move our children to school. Will we see this?
Yes. That is something that we are working on very diligently at this point in time. Right? We have the CDB, who is working with us on it. They are doing, I don't want to go into the details, finite details, but we are looking at running a pilot project in St. David's and St. George's. We'll target a certain amount of schools, enough so that we get enough data for that pilot project. Okay. But it's something that will happen, and it's going to happen before the end of the year. Okay. We want it to be something that will transform, it will begin the transformation of the transportation sector. And again, it is done in conjunction with the Bus Association. Again, I'm saying we are about to start going now, because we've been working in the background all the time. The board has been preparing the policies and the strategies. We are the operational arm now, and we've been putting things in place. So we actually about to start going out to our major stakeholders, you know, to give out the plan to them so that they could sit down and critique it, and we could sit down and make any adjustments or anything like that.
I will get into closing comments, and I'll come back so that you can have your closing comments. So Derek, I will start with you, then I'll come on to ASP. What you wish, so big dream, one wish that can happen in order to impact positively traffic management in Grenada. What is your wish? ASP, what is your wish? And then CEO will have the last comment.
I don't know if I have a wish, but I would hope that we would come together, put merge heads together, and to come up with the best possible solutions in terms of managing traffic. And I think I would have mentioned some of the solutions in the beginning when I started to speak. And I think that's what we look forward to get some of the congestion off the road. That would be very necessary, because as it is now, you can't move. And the other thing, a critical thing, you can't stage where, say, when an accident is going to happen. But I think we have to, in doing so, use the other roads that are accessible, because everybody wants to use the main road. We have to have them ensure that the by roads are, roadworthy, that is usable, and that people could use them in order to alleviate some when there is an accident or some kind of thing like that.
Okay, ASP?
Yeah, my wish is for the traffic department, for us to have a fully equipped traffic department. And when I speak fully equipped traffic department, I'm speaking here in the context of well-trained officers certified to curb the whole aspect of speeding, driving under the influence of alcohol, to have a robust mobile unit, a robust motorcycle unit that can deal in an efficient and effective way with the whole aspect of dealing with congestion, especially the motorcycles. And I think if we have those things and those resources, then we might be able to do much better in the whole aspect of traffic management.
Thank you. CEO?
Yeah. We got a mandate at the GTC that was given to us by our minister, articulated through the board. All right? I would like to see that mandate realized in as short a time as possible, because the longer it takes to be realized, is the more buses, more vehicles will come on the road. So it has to be done in the shortest possible time. I'd like to see the infrastructure in place to support any improvement. Because take for instance, if you look at Sutters really doesn't have any infrastructure. It's old, it's dilapidated. If you look at Granville again, it doesn't really have anything. You know, we know what St. George's have, but we have to improve it very, very quickly to support that infrastructure, to support the improvements that we want to put in place. Because we want to digitize everything. We want to be able to have cashless systems. We want when a passenger, they could go in, they could sit down in comfort, they could charge their phone, they could whatever, in comfort, they could say, look, there's a 10 o'clock bus, I'm getting 10 o'clock bus, the 1 o'clock bus, the 10 past 10 bus, and they could get it, and the bus is coming. That is what we want for the people of Grenada and Carriacou and Petit Martinique. In Carriacou, we could actually put in a whole new system in place in Carriacou, because remember, everything was devastated. So you could actually put in a whole new system in Carriacou. That's what we want to see, but it has to be done in the shortest possible time. So the young man, the young lady, instead of going and buy a car, they said, hey, you know something, I could travel, I have in a bus, I could walk out my door and get a bus, I would take my money and invest in a house, which is the biggest investment any young person can make, investing in a house. Because a car is a depleting asset, a house is an asset, a car is a depleting resources.
Thank you very much, Mr. David Bartholomew, CEO of the Grenada Transport Commission, ASP Randall Bartholomew, and Mr. Derek McKenzie, PRO of the National Bus Association. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure chatting with you. And to you, our viewers and listeners, thank you for giving up what amounts to be now, 95 minutes of your Monday evening in being with us. It was an absolute pleasure having this conversation, and look forward to being with you again 6 days, 22 and a half hours from now. Godspeed, take good care of yourselves and each other. Be safe on the roads now.